All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crime and Legal Studies panel. My name is Noelle Bassi, and I work in the Harrington Center here on campus. And we help students find internships and career advice, resumes. So if any of you need that kind of help and that kind of service, um, please let us know. We're here to help you. Let's see, today we also have a couple of faculty members with us, Kate Turcott and Lynn Garriak, so welcome to them as well. And I'd like to also quickly introduce our panelists, and then I will go into kind of a little bit of their background, and then we'll have the presentations, okay? So we do have Jordan Kopko with us. We have Christina McFarland, Stefan DiPolito, and Jason Ebacher, which probably some of you do know. So to start with, we have Jordan Kopko. Jordan works at the New Hampshire State Police Headquarters in the Recruitment and Training Unit. He was born and raised in New Jersey and has been employed by the New Hampshire State Police for 9 years. In 2011, he graduated with a BS in Criminal Justice from Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. Following graduation, he worked in Troop F, Grafton County, for 4 years, Troop A, Seacoast Spalding Turnpike Patrol for 2 years, and for the last 3 years, he has been assigned to the Recruitment and Training Unit. He and his spouse, who is a nurse, are busy raising 2-year-old twin daughters. He enjoys golfing and traveling, but of course those activities have been put on hold since the girls were born. He is involved with Toys for Tots, where this year he had the opportunity to be the main point of contact. The state police were able to collect $30,000, 5,000 plus toys, and almost 50 bicycles to hand over to the Toys for Tots. Next up, we will have Christina McFarland. Christina is the Assistant Superintendent who oversees the Essex County Sheriff's Department Women in Transition Facility. She worked for the department for 10 years, starting as a correctional officer. When she received her degree, her focus was primarily on patrol probation. Upon trying to apply for jobs relative to her degree, she had a hard time obtaining employment with no experience in the field. One of her customers at the time connected her with training at the department and suggested she apply for the upcoming academy. Corrections never even entered her mind as a career path because she is not a, quote, lock them up and throw away the key kind of person, which at the time was her perception of corrections. Okay, as she started her employment with the Sheriff's Department, she quickly realized her perception of corrections was wrong and that she could see herself making a career out of what she initially thought was a stepping stone. Next, we have Stefan DiPolito. He works in the Office of Professional Standards and he is a recruitment specialist for the Essex County Sheriff's Department. Stephen began his career with the Essex County Sheriff's Department in 2006. In 2007, he went to the 07-01 Essex County Sheriff's Department Basic Training Academy, and then attended the Northeast Regional Police Institute Training Academy. He is a sworn-in deputy sheriff at Essex County and Middlesex County Sheriff's Department. He has been a motivated and dedicated officer, taking on some of the many roles that the ECSD has to offer. He has worked every unit that we have and is trained for transportation, intake, internal affairs, and training and staff development. He is part of the Honor Guard, Crisis Intervention Team, and has been utilized on the Tactical Response Team, as well as a certified instructor in CPR, first responder, Fit Force, and active shooter. He has been present at countless career job fairs and saw the need to expand upon the recruitment process to obtain the most qualified applicants. He was fortunate enough to be selected as the department's recruitment specialist and assist with the application process, PT tests, oral board interviews, and some aspects of the background. He's extremely knowledgeable and promotes the integrity that the Sheriff's Department has to offer. Stephen possesses an AA in criminal justice and is pursuing his bachelor's degree at UMass Lowell. And finally, we have Professor Jason Ebacher, who you all probably know. Professor Jason Ebacher earned his bachelor's degree in psychology and criminal justice from Endicott College, a master's degree in criminal justice from the University of Massachusetts Lowell, and a Juris Doctor from the Massachusetts School of Law. Professor Ebacher has been a crime and legal studies adjunct professor at Colby Sawyer College since 2018. In addition, he has been an adjunct professor at Endicott College, Southern New Hampshire University, and Mount Washington College, formerly Hesser College, and served on their Criminal Justice Advisory Board. With over 20 years of law enforcement experience with the Essex County Sheriff's Department, Professor Ebacher started as a correctional officer in 1997, progressed up the ranks from sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and finally retiring as an assistant superintendent in 2018. As an assistant superintendent, he served as the department's director of training and staff development and director of several community outreach programs that assisted senior citizens, children, and the intellectually disabled. Professor Ebacher, in acknowledgement with his work in the community, received the Medal of Merit from the National Sheriff's Association in 2009 and is a graduate of the Northeast Reserve Police Institute in 2000. He is also a licensed attorney in the state of Massachusetts and New Hampshire and operates his own law practice in Amesbury, Mass, where he focuses on estate planning and elder law issues. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Jordan Kopko.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me. As mentioned, I'm a New Hampshire State Trooper. I've been a trooper since December of 2011. What I really like about the state police is it's diverse in the state and in the sense of everywhere you go, it's a little bit different within the state. So what I mean by that is I started out in Troop F, where I was more of a criminal patrol. So I was kind of a local cop in a state trooper uniform because I really didn't do any highway work, really. I was more so dealing with a lot of the smaller towns up there have no police departments, so they rely on the state police to handle the calls within their towns. So I feel like I became very well-rounded right off the bat. And I spent 4 years up there. I really loved it up there. It's a rich history. Troop F covers Grafton and Coos County in New Hampshire, so it covers 39% of the state geographically. After 4 years, I transferred to Troop A, which is totally different. It's the Seacoast region. So like Portsmouth, Interstate 95. I was actually on the Spalding Turnpike, and that was a lot more of a highway patrol. And did that for 2 years. And then, as mentioned, the last 3 years, I've been in recruitment and training. So all of my efforts are put into PR events, community outreach events, and having a little bit of a hand in our recruitment process and our hiring process. So overseeing the in-house academy that we run, where we prepare our new hires for the actual police academy. And then when they come back out, preparing them for the field training, the FTO program. So the state police has 7 different troops, all geographically throughout the state. And to become a New Hampshire State Trooper, you have to be at least 21 years old with at least 60 college credit hours. If you have no college experience, if you have just a high school degree or your GED, but you also have 2 years of full-time law enforcement experience or 2 years of military experience, then you can apply as well. We hire 3 times a year, or excuse me, we test 3 times a year. That's because the police academy is 3 times a year. And we put together classes every couple of months. So it takes about 5 months to get hired, starting with a PT test, the sit-ups, push-ups, and a 1.5-mile run. After that will be the written test, and then oral board, polygraph, background investigation, psych and medical to make sure you're mentally and physically okay to do the job, and then the colonel interview. So that's kind of our hiring process in a nutshell. I've really been fortunate to be a part of the state police and see a hand in that. We're relatively a smaller agency, compared to the country, but within the state, we're one of the bigger agencies within the state. Right now, we have about 320 troopers that are all throughout the state. The more popular troops are going to be your Southern troops, A, B, and C, and then your more rural troops like E and F, again, cover a lot of the towns that have no police departments at all throughout there. I'm going to put my information, make sure I put my information in the chat. That way anybody can reach out to me. A lot of the common questions I get is, what can you do right now? Or what can you do through the process to make yourself stand out? And it's kind of a simple answer. It is a lengthy process, and we really, and probably in all law enforcement agencies, they really delve into your background and delve into some of the mistakes you may have made in the past. But the biggest thing is we're not all perfect, and our process knows that. But the biggest thing is being honest about it and being upfront about it. So when you get ready for that polygraph, making sure you're honest and upfront about some of the mistakes you've made, because again, there's not a perfect candidate out there. We've all messed up in the past. It's a matter of being honest about it and also separating yourself from that mistake. And then another big thing is the PT test. To my knowledge, any police agency that I applied for, and I applied for a handful of them when I graduated college, is they give you the answers for the PT test, right? You know how many sit-ups, push-ups, mile and a half run. That's your typical PT test. So the biggest thing is just making sure you're physically ready, because that's always step one, and that's the initial step in becoming a law enforcement officer and kind of setting your reputation as a candidate for any agency that you may apply for. I'm going to cut it off right there because I don't know how much time we have, but I'd love to answer any questions that anybody has. Are we doing that at the end or one by one?
We can do now if any students have any questions, but we can also do it at the end too.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody has ample time to talk. So that's all I got for right now, and I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for allowing me to be part of this panel.
Thank you, Jordan. I'm going to give students a little bit of time to maybe put in the chat some of their questions, but I had a couple while we wait for that. Okay, so you did talk a little bit about what to look for in terms of honesty and the physical fitness part of the test. But what other qualities do you look for in a recruit? Like, I guess more like interpersonal qualities would you look for?
Yeah, so what I tell people, so I get the privilege, 2 weeks ago, I just sat on 40 oral boards interviews, and I was one of the 3 panel members for that. And I was kind of the runner of walking the candidate in the room and then walking them back to the lieutenant's office before and after. And the biggest thing I told them is, hey, look, for at least we asked 9 questions. Some of them are, what do you know about the agency? Some specific things. Do you know our colonel? Do you know the year? But a lot of them are personality type questions, because in that 30 to 45 minutes, it feels probably like a long time to the candidate, but it's really not that long of a time to get to know somebody. So what I tell them is be genuine, be yourself, because we get a lot of applicants who think they're just giving us answers that they think we want to hear. And the biggest thing is just being yourself. And we like that a lot more than somebody, because it's about finding a fit also, because everybody on the board usually has been an FTO, and a lot of times we put ourselves in that car and say, can we see that candidate sitting next to us, and are they trainable? Are they coachable? Are they genuine? And if someone's going to be in there and just try and be a robot and just feed us answers that are not really being themselves, it kind of turns the board off, and we don't really get to see them for who they are. And we usually tell them, try again next time, realistically, transparently. But that's the biggest thing, is the people that are honest and genuine all the way through the process, it usually works itself out. We've had, we love seeing military men and women come through. We like seeing individuals that have experience in the past. I had no experience in the past. I was kind of a college punk that just came through the process and blessed enough to get the position. But sometimes we also like that because it's a clean slate. But again, we see all kinds of backgrounds that come through.
Great, that's good advice, to just be yourself. So what do you see as the biggest challenge in law enforcement right now at this moment?
Right now, I mean, it's no secret if you turn the news on that we're not, I think it's died down a little bit, but Law enforcement, criminal justice is not the most popular profession right now, but I'll be the first to tell you that in New Hampshire, I really feel like we have the support from our leadership. Some of the effects of the pandemic, I've seen budget cuts and all, but I really haven't seen any major budget cuts because of, defunding the police or anything. It's all more so come from just the budget hit of everyone's dealing with the economic crisis that the pandemic has set on our state. But we really, as something as simple as, I'm a weird cop in the sense that I'm one of the cops that doesn't drink coffee. It's not a health choice. It's just haven't acquired the taste. And I know that's weird of me, but I say that because a lot of troopers have told me, man, I'm in Dunkin' Donuts line and the person in front of me buys me the coffee. And something small like that, we're really still seeing the support of our communities out there. And you had mentioned in the introduction, I appreciate that, the Toys for Tots effort that we were able to do this year, and just being able to see the community really come together and donate. And yeah, it made the state police look good, but it really wasn't a testament to the community of raising that kind of money, because we were kind of the middleman, if you will, of going to these different events, collecting toys, collecting donations, and then handing it over to the Marines, who ultimately oversee the entire Toys for Tots organization.
Great, thank you. I also have to say, when we had communicated earlier, I almost put in your bio that you had read the Wonky Donkey.
Oh, that's right.
to the little children, whatever grade that was. That was very cute. So great. Well, thank you very much. And we will turn it over to Christina now.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina McFarland. Like your professor said, I'm the Assistant Superintendent of the Essex County Women in Transition Program. This is one of 3 facilities that Essex County oversees. It's the only female pre-release facility of the county. Essex County has the Middleton House of Corrections, which is a medium security facility, and then has the Essex County Pre-Release and Reentry Center pre-release facility that's located in Lawrence, and that services the male population. And the WIT is a 24-bed female facility. It's a smaller piece of the pie for sure, but we definitely service a different population, being that it's the females coming in here. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I came out of college a little bit of a lost puppy. I didn't actually, I'm sorry, I came out of high school a little bit of a lost puppy. I didn't really know my career path. I think I changed my major like 100 times. Just trying to figure out sort of my area of interest, what excited me about employment, because at the time I, had other things on the mind. So I finally found criminal justice. I went to community college at North Shore. I received my associate's degree and went on to Salem State University and got my bachelor's in criminal justice. There was one class in particular that I enjoyed so much. It was a newer class. It was rehabilitation of the offender. Like your professor said in my bio, I definitely, corrections was not on my radar as a career path, as I thought that it really was a place for criminals to go, serve their time, and sort of lock them up, throw away the key. As I progressed throughout my studies, I realized that there was sort of this shift in the criminal justice world, that there was more emphasis on rehabilitation and programming, which I really thought was my area of interest. Got out of college and sort of had a tough time finding employment. Criminal justice is one of those places, and law enforcement is you need to have experience. I unfortunately didn't have an in-person internship. I did more of a directed study. And that really I did myself an injustice there, where I didn't put myself out there and build connections and networking. There's one thing I can suggest to all of you, is to put yourself out there and to network and build those networks, because when you get out of college, those are going to be your channels of finding employment. I'm sure all of you have different areas of studies, but obviously this is this area is there's so many opportunities within the Sheriff's Department, and I won't touch too much upon that, as I don't want to step on my colleague, who will talk about that more. but I started as a correctional officer. I came in after 3 years of being out of college. I went through the academy. It's a pretty vigorous 2-month academy, and started as a third shift, 11 to 7 correctional officer. And I have to say, I still remember the day 10 years ago, walking into that unit of 120 inmates and the door shutting behind me, and all their little faces are poking through the window to see the new jack on the unit, as they call it. And I thought to myself, what am I doing here? It's a pretty scary feeling. And to think about where I'm at now, had I known what I know now then, I think I would have felt differently about it. So after about four years, I went over to the pre-release facility, which really opened up a lot of doors for me. Pre-release has more emphasis on reentry and preparing an offender for a successful reintegration into the community, which is what led me into the electronic monitoring program. And at that point, my capacity as an officer was still security and making sure that the inmates we had out in electronic monitoring were doing the right thing. And at that point, I was promoted to the assistant director of the Office of Community Corrections, which is another umbrella under the Sheriff's Department. So we sort of have these cohorts under the Sheriff's Department. In addition to the correctional facilities, we have the Civil Process Division, and then we have the Office of Community Corrections. The OCC is a probation driven program. We sort of act as a vendor to the trial court and provide programming. We do drug testing. There's we can provide job training, all sorts of things that are inmates that have re-entered the society, that it's either a condition of probation or it's sort of their last stop before jail. It's sort of an opportunity for them to shape up, or they end up going to jail, which the correction centers are throughout all counties, actually. I know Middlesex still, Middlesex is now on its own, but there's many counties that still have the community correction centers. And at that point, I sort of needed a change. So I put in for this position, sort of not expecting to receive the position, but I really needed a change. I have to say, I think what has sort of expedited my career path is putting myself out there, taking positions that not normally would I have taken in areas that I wouldn't, that are not ideal, geographically to where I live, or the work that's being done. I did probably 2 or 3 years of training where I got my certification in teaching CPR. I was just trying to find my niche in the department. Until I found programming, I realized that that's sort of my area, and that I really believe in programming. Corrections is a place that we really need to start giving all the tools in their tool belt to be successful when they get out. And this emphasis on reform has just been even more since my 10 years with the department. A little bit of what I do now. So I oversee the facility. We're still a correctional facility, but in normal times, not during a pandemic, we provide the ladies with opportunities to go out and work, or they leave during the day, they go out and work, and they come back to the facility. It's a chance for them to sort of, get some money in their pocket before they leave. Some of them, if eligible, can be classified to go out on electronic monitoring, live at home, live at one of our sober houses. We share our facility with the Link House Incorporated, and it's a woman's facility, a woman's sober house called the Maris Center. And we work very closely with them, and that's actually where our sober house is for our inmates that are living out on electronic monitoring. The female population is definitely different, as most of my career was spent working with the male population. Coming in here, it's definitely, it was nerve-wracking, because the female offender is definitely a different, has different needs. You know, most of them are mothers. A lot of them are working on reunification with their children, and most of them have substance use problems. And being able to address the needs in the short time that we have them here. Most of the time, we only have the inmates here for 6 months or less, which is really just not enough time for us to be able to work with them, to prepare them for reentry, but we do the best that we can. For us, we have Spectrum Health Services as our clinical vendor. We also have a new partnership within the last couple of years with Northern Essex Community College, which provides all of our education services, which really has expanded much more than that, vocational trainings, and we have some new grants with the Department of Labor that have really opened up opportunities for trainings. We have a CTEC program that can actually get them a tangible certificate and a recognized certification upon release to help them get employment. So, you know, there's tons of grant funding out there for them. They just need to be willing to utilize it. And their willingness to change obviously is a big component of it. Not everybody that comes in here wants to do the work. A lot of them just want to sleep their bit away. Being part of this program here at the WIT, we expect them, they need to be out of bed during the day. We plug them into programming. We have a wide range of volunteer services of people coming in here volunteering on their own time. They don't get paid, and servicing this population for various things, from Reiki and yoga to self-esteem. It's really, you have to learn how to adapt with the population shifts. And luckily, the sheriff is and his vision definitely opens up additional opportunities for these women. They just have to be willing to accept it. I could talk for hours about it because I'm very passionate about programming, and I really believe that if we give them all the tools to be successful and they're willing to change, that they'll be out and they'll be productive members of society. You know, I always tell them on the way out the door, it's been nice having you, but please don't come back. You know, reducing recidivism and really promoting public safety is corrections' main goal. But also there's this whole other area of programming that really is being emphasized, which I think is just, we'll see the effects in the numbers for sure. I know law enforcement is not the most ideal profession right now, and I'll definitely let Steve take that one. But don't take corrections off the table. You know, it's not just putting on the uniform and telling people what to do. There's definitely other avenues under the department umbrella. There's security investigations, there's K-9, there's training and staff development, and then all the other cohorts that I spoke upon. So I did send out some business cards to you, Noel. I'm not sure if you received them, but please feel free if, you know, at the end of the session, if you have any questions, or if you want to reach out to me independently, I'd be more than happy to talk about, to answer any questions that you may have, and just sort of be a networking tool, even if it's just directing you in the right path. So good luck to everyone. I know this is a trying time during the pandemic, but if there's one thing you can take out of it, it's always something positive, is adapting to change and being able to overcome. So good luck. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Christina. I can definitely hear the passion that you talked about. That was fantastic. I'm also, and I just can't help it, I just keep thinking orange is the new black. That's all I can think. That's just the image that keeps
you know, it's funny that you say that. When I was first referred over, like I said in my bio, to the training development, that was just sort of in my mind, that's what you think of, right? Is like jail on TV. And it's like, that's why for sure I was like, this is not for me. This is just not for me. But definitely don't believe everything you see on TV or the media, because sometimes it's not always the case.
Sorry, I have to get myself off mute here before I can. Okay, we did have a question in the chat, and that was, what would you have done differently at the start of your career had you known what you know now?
Ooh, good question. And I'm not getting the chat, so I'm not sure
Oh,
if
this
it's
was sent to
open.
me.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm just,
Okay.
that's okay.
I think I would have taken, I think I would have directed my studies in a different way. I wasted a lot of time, like 2.5 years of trying to figure it out. So I think knowing what I know now, I would have taken certain courses that were pertaining to what I do now. I think when I went into Salem State, I really still didn't have like a focus on where I wanted to direct my degree. So had I known what corrections had to offer, I think I would have sort of directed my studies in a different way. I also would have taken, you know, internships and study abroads and whatnot a little bit more seriously because of the networking that's so important in this field, and not only in under the umbrella of the Sheriff's Department, but with parole and probation and other law enforcement agencies. The knowledge that they have is so, it's just invaluable. It really, I would have put myself out there a little bit more, and I definitely would have learned more about these different agencies before determining, I guess, my focus of my studies.
Yeah, because like you said, you had said you sort of have a preconceived notion before really learning about it. So just sort of getting a broader education about all of it.
Right, right.
We have another one. What do internships look like now at your facility?
So there's areas in all of the umbrellas for internships. So it's all filtered through one person. And then at that point, it's sort of determined what area would be most appropriate for them. So Barbara Marr is our, I believe she still is, and Steve, you might know more than that, but she sort of filters all of the internships. Right now, I think we currently have somebody from Salem State who sort of is in the same boat as I was. He's in criminal justice, doesn't really know exactly, he thinks law enforcement, being a police officer is where he wants to go, but he just wasn't sure. So where they placed him was at the pre-release facility in Lawrence, and being in the pre-release gives him a little bit more flexibility about where he can go, what groups he can sit in, it's minimum security. So he's able to sort of get a little bit more of, you know, the broader scope of things than if you were in Middleton. Middleton, obviously, we have COVID precautions. It's higher security, so there's restrictions on where interns can actually go into units. And Steve, you might be able to sort of speak upon that a little bit more. You can't go in the units, and you can't really interact with the inmates as much as you can in the pre-release facilities. So I guess it all determines on your area of focus and where, you know, we think you best would be fit.
Great, thank you. All right. Oh, here's one that you can probably get.
Oh, that is a loaded question. So how do you think COVID-19 has impacted your facilities? COVID really has put quite a bit of shutdown on our normal operations. At least here for the pre-release, we have not had our work release or bracelet program up and running we're coming up on almost a year, which really is a significant hit for our population, as most of them we're releasing most of them without any money in their pocket. The best we can do for them is set them up with an interview. So that very much has affected our program. We also went through probably a 6 to 8 month period where we weren't accepting new referrals. So for a time period, I think we had 4 inmates in the facility, which, you know, of course, raises the question financially, is it really appropriate to keep this open right now? So I think and numbers hit across the board, not just here in Essex County, but across the board were low. The courts weren't sentencing. They weren't seeing people in person. They were sentencing on a need basis and a you know, a dangerousness type situation. But the courts were running in modified procedures, and they just weren't sentencing people. They actually were letting people out. So it definitely put a toll on that. We weren't being able to properly program because we couldn't have volunteers come in. Our vendors were on a rotating basis. And for a little bit, we're out of the facility altogether. So trying to sort of pick up those pieces while the shutdown was in effect was really just adapting and trying to figure out, all right, what can we do and what programs can we offer them? I think at one point our correctional officers ran a baking course, and I secured funds to get stuff for them to, make pies, because it's what can we do to occupy their time? We don't let them sleep all day, so what are we going to do while they're here? So that really, and we still don't have our volunteer services back up and running at this point. A lot of them are of the high risk population, and they don't feel comfortable coming into the facility. It also raises another disciplinary layer, because we're enforcing mask wearing and social distancing and limiting the amount of people that are in an area at any given time, and just sort of trying to educate the population on why these protocols are in place, why we don't have certain programmings up and running, and trying to enforce it to keep everyone safe, all the staff and all the people we serve.
Great. Well, thank you, Christina. And keep in mind, students, we will have time for more at the end if you have another question. But right now, I'd like to move on to Stephen Dappolito.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Dappolito. I've been with the department a little over 14 years. I started out as a correction officer. I went through the 12-week basic training academy. After that, I graduated and worked a couple of years, different units. They kind of move you around just so you don't get complacent and you understand the different inmates, the different units. And after that, I had the ambition to want to do more. I went through the Massachusetts Part-Time Police Academy. Once I graduated that, it gave me the ability to do details with all of law enforcement in the 34 cities and towns that we cover. In addition to that, I could also do honor guard. So I did that. I got on the tactical response team. I got hurt. I was out injured for a little bit and ended up going back to work. Once I went back to work, again, I became a little more driven, wanted to do more than just work in a housing unit. So we had the ability to bid for intake. It was a weekends and holidays off position, which was nice. And then I got into transportation. So just picking inmates at my court, bringing them back to the facility. After that, I got into internal affairs, working with the internal affairs team, conducting backgrounds, kind of going over a lot of the applicants that were coming through the process. And with that process, you see that it was a big decline in the amount of people that we get for this kind of line of work. So I got selected to help out the training department and go to the recruiting department. So with that, it was the first time our department's ever done something like this. We always just send somebody from the honor guard to a career fair. So since I started, I've been going to different schools. The beginning of last year, I had 45 schools targeted to go to, including some local gyms, just to kind of, hit everybody, at all different levels. And again, just trying to spread the word a little louder. This is a tough field to get involved in. It can be rewarding depending upon what department you're in and what you want to do in your career. What's nice about our department is our sheriff was a former chief of police in Lynn. So with that, he's given us the ability to try out for all different kinds of departments and all different branches. Again, I've gotten the ability to work in recruiting, which is part of the training department. There's always the option to do more here, which is nice. You never get complacent and get to the point where, I wish I did something different. Like Christina had mentioned, she's at our Women in Transition facility. I'm in our training department, but we all started out as officers. So where you want to go from being a correction officer is up to the individual. It's a great place to start. If it's not your end goal, it's still a great place to get experience. A lot of our correction officers end up becoming police officers, state troopers, and they understand how to deal with people in a controlled environment. They know how to talk to people. Communication is the hardest part of this job. So when we do oral boards, we have a panel of people that are officers, sergeant, lieutenants. They're people who've done the job. So they're people that are making sure, is this somebody I can work with, or is this somebody I could supervise, to make sure that, not only are you right for the job, but is the job right for you? So we're not setting people up for failure. Our standards are a little tougher. Similar to what Jordan said with the state police, we do have a 2-year education requirement, either an associate's or 60 credits towards a bachelor's. If you don't have that, we also accept 2 years of military. We do give education incentives. So if you do have an associate's, you get an extra $2,500 every November. A bachelor's is $3,500 and master's is $4,000. We also have education fitness incentives. So if you take our physical fitness test every year as an option, you get an extra $750. It is a requirement, just like most of the other law enforcement agencies, to take the physical fitness exam, push up, sit and reach in a 1.5 mile run. And then once you pass that portion, you'll go on to our oral interview stages. Then there's the backgrounds, psych tests, medical screening, drug screening, and then orientation for our academies. Our academies are twice a year. We have them once in April and one in September. The goal is always 30, so we're always hiring. Our hiring process is very fluid, so every month we'll do a PT test, usually towards the end of the month, and then your oral board interview usually follows the month after. And then our process is anywhere between 6 and 7 months, depending upon which academy you're trying out for. The longest part of the process is always backgrounds, and then once they're completed, then you just keep advancing. But again, it's a great field to get into. It's very, again, rewarding depending upon what department you're in, what division you're in. But it's, again, I've been here 14 years and I'm still learning, I'm still growing, because it's run by the state of Massachusetts. I've been able to go back to school and have the department pay for 50% of the tuition, because they'll pay 50% for any state school. So it's been great to be able to try to go back and not have that financial burden. I'll take 1-2 classes at a time. I'll do a couple overtimes and it just pays for itself. So it comes with a lot of benefits. The 20 and out, so you can work 20 years and retire with 50% of your pay for the rest of your life, regardless of your age. There's not a lot of departments that still offer that. So we're very fortunate to have that. And then in combination with all the other bonuses that, the sheriff offers and the other avenues and branches that you can go into, it's endless. So we have a lot of great opportunities, and we're constantly looking for new recruits and new candidates. So if you are interested, I can definitely get my information out to Noel. And again, I'd love to have you, even if you wanted to get more information, but you're not sure if there's something you want to do. I can send you some videos of what the academy's like. Our academies are only 12 weeks long. They're Monday through Friday. You go home at night, you go home on the weekends. It's roughly 6 a.m. till about 2:15, 2:30. And, that's about it. Our starting pay, depending upon what your education level is, can be anywhere from $64,000 a year to $68,000 a year, depending upon what shift you're working and, again, your education level. So, a lot of money you can make and, retire in 20 years. So it's a great profession.
Thank you, Stephen. That was a great overview. I wanted to clarify a couple of points and ask a question. And of course, students, please, if you have anything, put in the chat, unmute, whatever. But while you're thinking of that, I do have a question. So you had mentioned, I feel like you had said that there were different academies. Now, do they have different focuses? They must, right?
Correct. So when you become a correction officer, it's a 12-week basic training academy. And that's our correctional officer academy that is ran by the Massachusetts Sheriff's Association. So each county does their own academy. So we have our own academy. So the only people that are in it are people that you're going to be working with in the facility. After that, it's not mandatory, but it's an optional where we'll endorse you to go to the Massachusetts Part-Time Police Academy. And what that entails is that gives you the ability to do details in all of Essex County. It basically gives you powers of arrest. So in Massachusetts, we have reserve police. When a reserve police officer goes to that academy, he can work as a reserve in that town. When a correction officer goes to that academy, he becomes a deputy sheriff. Now has powers of arrest, again, transportation, so he can sign legal documents. Canine, because they have a take-home vehicle, so in case they have to make traffic stops or arrests, they have those powers of arrest. The internal affairs department, same thing, legal documents and security investigations. So it kind of just opens up more doors. It's not mandatory, but again, if you do take it and you do partake, it can be worth it in the long run. Unfortunately, when Columbia Gas had the explosion, a lot of the departments reaped the benefits. They were paying $60 to $90 an hour just to have, mutual aid and, just assistance. So, only detail qualified people were able to go assist, those cities and towns, but financially it was worth it. You do have to pay to put yourself through it. I think it's up to like $2,500 now to take this part-time academy. But again, after a couple of details, it just paid for itself. And then especially if you want to go into transportation or if you want to have those weekend and holiday off positions, it's something that is required.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have to be a trooper after the academy then? You can go on to
No,
different...
no, like I said, it just makes it so instead of you getting a correction officer badge, now you get a deputy sheriff badge.
Okay, great. So, I don't know, I'm going to check the chat, make sure there's no students having any questions, but I have one more, just sort of an overarching question is, from your perspective, what are the most critical changes that law enforcement needs to make to face the future?
I mean, the biggest thing in our line of work is not judging. I mean, especially with just everything that's going on in the world, you have to come into this job with an open mind. And again, you got to leave work at work. And, you know, when you get home, that's where you decompress and, you know, just staying in touch with, you know, your current friends and, you know, don't lose touch with reality. I mean, a lot of people come into this field and, you know, they get that, you know, that wow factor, like, what did I do? And other people, you know, again, can separate and detach themselves from, you know, what's reality and what's at home. And, you know, again, just the big thing is just, you know, not being judgmental and just, again, these are all people. I mean, you might deal with some people that, you know, are in here for murder, or it might be a kid that stole his mother's car. So again, just, you know, not falling into that trap where you're judging people and, you know, you're judging a book by its cover. Just you're in here to do a job, just do the job, and that's all we ask for.
Great. And then I just wanted to follow up on a point that you made in the bio, is that you saw the need to expand upon the recruitment process. So I'm wondering, what did you see that made you think that this recruitment process needed to be expanded upon? Was it just the need for more law enforcement officers, or was there something else more specific? So
a couple of things. One, definitely the decline, the amount of applications that were coming in. In addition to that, kind of open it up to more people and different kinds of people, different ages. We don't have an age cap. So a female in our last academy was 52 years old. So again, I mean, in Massachusetts, you can get a 10-year pension. So, you know, she can do it and before the age of 65 and be able to still retire with something. Different states, you know, I mean, we don't have a residency requirement, so you can apply, you know, living in Connecticut, New Hampshire, Rhode Island. We have a lot of people that commute. So, you know, not just targeting on high school students. It was always beyond that. It was like, all right, let's look into, you know, some of the people that go to work every day that, you know, got out of the military and they're doing construction and they, you know, would love to get a 20-year pension and something less physically demanding. So just trying to open up our doors to a lot of other people. And that's why I kind of started going to gyms. Let's get people that are, you know, more in shape. Let's, you know, continue to go to colleges, keep those partnerships open, go to career fairs and, you know, kind of just, I was at a Stop and Shop, you know, passing out flyers. And it wasn't that I was trying to get the customer. I'm trying to get the customer's maybe grandson that they can't get out of the house, needs a job, or, you know, their nephew or friend or neighbor, you know, and just to kind of spread the word a little louder, because it'd be nice to have a bigger pool of applicants and give more people the opportunity and let them know of the opportunities that we do have here. Because a lot of people, you know, that live in the town don't even know that there's a jail here. So again, just kind of expanding, you know what I mean, our job opportunities to more than just what we've been doing. And again, I was doing a lot of the career fairs, so I wanted to do more. I wanted to, again, spread the word a little louder by going to more places and letting more people know about our opportunities.
Great, just sort of expanding the diversity. So
right.
You sound like a great resource along with Jordan and Christina. So if I could ask you, the three of you, to put your contact info for our students in the chat, that would be great at some point. I appreciate that. And right now I'd like to move on to Jason Ebacher, Professor Ebacher.
Great. Well, thank you, Noel. First of all, I want to say I'm very honored to be on this panel, especially with you know, Christina and Steve, who I've had the pleasure of working with for many years, and of course Jordan. Jordan has been kind enough to speak in my classes now for the last couple of years, and I know my students always love your presentations, Jordan. I look forward to having you again in the future. I want to mirror a lot of some of the things that Christina said. When I was an undergrad, and you know, a lot of you have heard my story. Of course, I'm looking at the names most of you have had in class, but just like Christina said, when I was an undergrad, I didn't settle on criminal justice until I was a senior in college. I started as a psychology, well, I was a psychology major my junior year, and then I added criminal justice as a minor. Working in a jail, it was never even a thought in my mind of doing doing that thing. I remember as a junior, my professor at Endicott bring us for a tour at the jail. And I remember I looked down, and Steve and Christina will know, when I looked down, I was in the 240 lower, and I looked down on the blocks and I saw 120 inmates and 2 officers and no weapons and nothing. And I said, you've got to be absolutely out of your mind to work in an environment like that. And then what do you know? A year and a half later, I was in the academy. I didn't want to apply. They were having a career fair at Salem State. Matter of fact, my uncle, who's an adjunct professor at Salem State, he got the flyer. He says, hey, I think you should apply. I'm like, you're crazy. I don't want to work at a jail. I said, I want to be what Jordan's doing. I wanted to be a trooper. And so I reluctantly applied, and I got to tell you, it was one of the best things that ever happened to my career. You know, not only has it given me the experience to work with such different populations of people, and especially working with those that have been committed or have alleged to have committed some of the most horrific crimes that one can actually think of. And yet we had to deal with them on a daily basis. I mean, there was no barriers, and Steve and Christina can attest. You're on an open block, and Christina, when you said, I started on the 11 to 7 shift as well. And I'll never forget my first shift. And I remember when those doors shut and the lights got dim, and I said, what have I gotten myself into here? And I don't care if anybody tells you they weren't scared, they're lying. I was scared like you wouldn't believe. And, but you know what? Like I said, it was one of the best experiences. It's allowed me, as Steve mentioned, allowed me to go back to school. You know, and I realized that with having that 20-year pension, that I had the opportunity to retire at age 44, which I was fortunate enough to do. And I'm so glad I had that opportunity. But if not for me going back to school and continuing my education, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. I would still be there. I think I'd be on year 25 now. And, but it gives you that opportunity to continue on with your education. The pension system is terrific. As Steve mentioned, there are so many different opportunities. If not for my 20 years, and Jordan, I apologize, it's such a heavily corrections-laden career panel, but if not for my 20 years at the Essex County Sheriff's Department, I would not be where I am today in regards to the opportunities that it gave to me. For example, one of the things a student asked me this morning in a class that I was teaching is that, how did I get into teaching? And I said, well, it all started when I was a sergeant with the Sheriff's Department, and I requested to teach, of all classes, the most non-sought after class to teach, report writing. I wanted to teach report writing. Why? Because I thought that our officers, we could all do better. And that started my teaching career, and I fell in love with it. And if not for my time at the Sheriff's Department with teaching, which eventually evolved in teaching a lot of legal courses, and then becoming the director of training for a period of time, you know, I was able to hone that skill and realize that when I retired, and fortunately while I was there, I was able to, you know, start teaching at Endicott College and Southern New Hampshire University in Hesser. And then when I retired, I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Turcotte, and I've been up at Colby Sawyer since then, since we started the Crime and Legal Studies program, which has been an absolutely amazing experience. So you know, Steve has talked about a lot of the hiring process, so I don't need to reiterate that. You students know a lot about my background. I will say in regards to career and you know, what to do as far as when applying for jobs, and I've said this to my students in the past, is that when you're out there looking for jobs, I always use the term apply everywhere to get to somewhere. My point is, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because I had never an intention of working in corrections. There was no way you were going to find me at a jail working. I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to be the trooper. I wanted to be the probation officer, but I didn't know of the opportunities that corrections can provide to you. I mean, Christina, she's in charge of a women's facility. Steve is in charge, he's in training, doing recruitment. And I remember I didn't do recruit myself, but I oversaw somebody that did recruitment. And that's a daunting task. And I will say that Steve has a harder job than we ever had, because when I was in charge of training, people were knocking down the door to get a job with us. And matter of fact, when we would had hiring processes, and I think Christina might have been one of yours, if we put an ad out in the paper for 30 correctional officers, we got close to 400 applications. And people were just beating down the door for jobs. Now it's not, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, 400 applications, I'm sure it would make your day. So I don't know what you guys are getting for applications now for a hiring process, but back then it was not hard to hire. It was not hard to find people that wanted a job. But nowadays it's different. The culture in law enforcement is different. It's changing, and it's changing for the better as well. There are obviously room for improvement in the field. In any field, there's always room for improvement. And I will just say that I'm proud of the 20 years that I did at the Sheriff's Department. One of my biggest accomplishments, I feel. And it was a great opportunity for me. And so don't neglect that. Apply everywhere to get to somewhere. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And if you have any further questions, you guys know where you can reach me. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Ebacher. I appreciate that. Again, students, please reach out. You know Professor Ebacher, so you should feel comfortable asking questions. Please do. But in the meantime, I am curious as what professional associations you think the students should join at this point to kind of build their networking.
Is that to everybody, or is that just to me?
Oh, it's to you, Jason.
Oh,
and
it's to
anybody
me.
else can certainly interject if they, or put it in the chat if they think of one too as well.
Well, professional resource, Steve might know this better than I do, because he works in that field, but my thing is just, network and tell people what you want to do with your career, because somebody knows somebody. And, when I explained what I wanted to do with my career and be in law enforcement, fortunately, I came from a law enforcement family. And, my uncle, he was like the mayor of Danvers, where he grew up and lived. And he knew everybody and knew everybody in the field. So he was able to give me that introduction. But as far as networking groups, I mean, obviously social media is very important. Have a LinkedIn account, because, that's something that hiring individuals, departments are going to look at. And one of the things I've mentioned a million times is that I remember when I was a director of training, one of the things we started doing is looking at social media accounts when somebody was going through a hiring process. So if you have, and I've told my students this before, clean it up. If you have pictures of you doing a keg stand or pictures of you doing things that are not professional looking, I guarantee Steve's not going to hire you. He's not going to take a second look at you, because you know what? That's a reflection on us. If we hire somebody, if they hired somebody that was doing things like that and they continue to have problems, they're going to say, well, why did you hire this person in the first place? So social media presence is very important, and make sure that it's professional. I always said boring is good when it comes to social media. You don't want to have those exciting Facebook and Instagram pages, because it could come back to bite you in the butt. So, but I'm going to pass it off to Steve, because he probably knows better than I would in that case.
I mean, no, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we when people come for their oral board interview, we do a social media review the same day. And we've had people that have gotten disqualified, right because of what they post on social media. And it's not maybe what they post, but they got some memes on there or any kind of sexual explicit things that they maybe thought were funny. Well, the department is not going to think it's funny, especially when you're representing a law enforcement agency. And again, you have inappropriate things on your social media. So again, it does follow you. So, it is important to keep it clean. LinkedIn and a lot of those, Facebook, a lot of those accounts are great resources to see what's out there. A lot of departments will do big blasts, for all the local area. So you'll get that ad. So again, just, keep paying attention to all the departments that are hiring. You definitely have your pick of the litter right now. A lot of departments are hiring. So again, really start to think about what you want to do. and what you want to get involved with. You know, some departments have information sessions, some of them We'll just give information, like I've done private tours for people, just to give them an idea of what the facility is like. Mock interviews I've done, mock PT tests. So if you want to come see what a law enforcement PT test is like, again, you're more than welcome to come watch, just so you kind of know what to expect as you get into the different fields. I've worked with people that may not necessarily want to stay with us or employ with us, but they want to know what a law enforcement process is like. Again, we're willing to help anybody, just because, again, it's good community outreach. It's good to work with people. It's good to network, and it's good to have a resource. So please, if you need any advice or any information, or if you just want to prepare for an interview, again, I probably did about 100 interviews this year. So I'm more than willing to give any kinds of advice to anybody that needs it, and help out any student that's willing to ask.
I have a quick question. Does the New Hampshire State Police or the Essex County Sheriff Department, is there a Facebook account or Instagram account associated with either of those, like a public one, not necessarily a professional one, but like the Newbury Police Department around here has a Facebook page?
Yes, the state police has Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Great. So that's something that they could probably join and,
Yes.
be a part of as well.
Yep.
So, okay.
In Sheriff's Department, same thing. Every time we do a career fair, we kind of throw that on there just in case there was a student that went to that school. Anytime we're hiring, or just anything we do throughout the town, it's always on there just to update, again, the 34 cities and towns of what's going on in the area, and give recognition where, recognition's due.
Yeah, absolutely. So students aren't big Facebook people necessarily, but I think they do Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and that kind of thing. So that's a good resource for them, maybe, to just sort of see a little bit about what it's about. So, well, I do want to open it up to any other students or anybody else that has any questions, any comments for Christina, Jason, Jordan, or Steve. Please feel free to throw that in the chat. Otherwise, if you don't right at this time and can't think of anything, you certainly have their contact info, and I encourage you to oh yes, so Olivia and Emma had a good question above, which I believe Christina did answer, but if you could get on the mic and just kind of verbalize that for everybody, Christina, that would be great.
Sure. So Olivia and Emma asked, how did I get over the fear of being a female officer? It definitely was, it didn't happen overnight. Being more comfortable with the job and knowing sort of the policy and procedures made it easier for me to become more confident when interacting with the inmates. They're definitely, it's a strange culture, but once they kind of figure out what you're all about, and that you won't take any crap, they sort of respect you in a sense where, they're going to follow the rules. You're there as an enforcer. You wear the badge and you tell them what to do. And most of them don't like to be told what to do. So there's definitely, they're people. Inmates are people. There are some bad people that belong in jail, for sure. But you need to remain unbiased. You need to treat them all equally. And you receive the same back from them. There definitely obviously was incidents that happened around you that you had to respond to, but I have to say, in my 10 years of working in corrections, I've never been attacked by an inmate, solely directed to me. And more or less having to intervene in a physical altercation between them. But I've never been attacked by an inmate. So yeah, yes, you're dealing with some very dangerous people. But if you approach them with, not treating them less than a human, you're gonna get the same back from them. So it definitely took time, for sure, but it got easier over time.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina.
Sure.
All right. Well, I think this wraps it up, and I really appreciate all of our panelists' time. Jason Ebacher, Stephen, Jordan, and Christina, really appreciate your time and appreciate the fact that you wanted to share your stories and your insights and your knowledge and expertise, as well as your information for networking. Super appreciate that. So you guys have a great day. And thank you also for Professor Turcott and Professor Garriok for including their classes with this as well. And everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you, Jordan, Steve, and Christina.
Thank you. Good to see you as well.
All right, take care.
Yes,